Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's Force Friday show. As you did see from that opening little shot, we are going to be surveying over the absolute car crash that is apparently the Rise of Skywalker. Now, I did fling in an interesting little word there, apparently, because sadly, we haven't seen the movie yet. And as I did say last night as well, I'm slightly questioning whether I do want to go and watch this movie now, because Stephen, the early reviews have come out from both audience members and critics alike. It is not painting a pretty picture at all. 57% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie currently holds 267 reviews counted. It's a disaster. I spoke about it briefly last night. It was actually at 59%. It's dropped. It's an absolute disaster, Stephen. Where do you go from here? Are you still excited to go and see this movie on our traditional Sunday day? We go and watch it on a Sunday.
Star Wars Sundays, John.
Yes.
Yeah,
still looking forward to that.
I'll tell you one thing that's different from any other time, John. We've still not got our tickets. We've normally booked them at this point. We've got our seats. We know where we're sitting. We're just going to turn up on the day. That's where it's at with this franchise at the moment. The other question you asked, where it goes from here, it doesn't go anywhere, because this is the last film for the next 4 or 5 years possibly, or maybe forever, who knows. We're going to have to rely on TV shows for the Force Friday show in the foreseeable future.
Dead.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Whoa!
I don't think that we can, really go on talking about this film for weeks and weeks and weeks, but as you said, we've not seen it yet. It's just actually been released. As we are recording this, it's only come out today anyway, so it's not like it's anything unusual. But
I don't think it's unreasonable, Stephen, to not go and see a movie until the opening weekend. It is released early, so
One of the
we are big Star Wars fans, guys.
Yeah, one of the things I have picked up on, John, and one of the other channels that's clearly loving what's happening just now, which is quite sad, but they did pick up on something that I was thinking about, and that was in regards to the leaks, these so-called leaks that have been going about for the last 3 months. Apparently it looks like a lot of them may be true. That's concerning, not from what I've heard from the leaks, but the fact that the leaks came out that early. That's unusual for a Star Wars film to have so many pieces of information released 3 months before the film's release. You go back to, and I'm not comparing this film because you can't compare any other sort of sci-fi or fantasy film or space opera with Endgame. That was a once in a lifetime
it was
experience.
A movie, yes.
Yeah, but in terms of the sort of process of its release, everything was nailed down. There was no leaks getting out. In fact, I think the cast even took upon themselves to go onto social media and tell fans that have seen the film, don't spoil it for the ones that haven't seen it.
There was a campaign, even the Russos were involved.
Yeah, this is just a totally different thing. I think most people that are a little bit bummed with Star Wars just now will still go and see this film, but they want to know what they're going to let themselves in for. That's why people are seeking out spoilers this time, which is so unusual for Star Wars fans to do so. Most Star Wars fans, because that one of the things in Star Wars was probably the franchise that started the whole sort of secret and reveals and stuff like that, and keeping spoilers to a minimum. This one has just been like a sieve. It's just leaked everywhere, and if those leaks are true, and I'm hearing probably about 70 to 80% of the leaks are true, then that's quite concerning.
Well, Stephen, you're absolutely right. It's a damning indictment of this movie, really, that it has essentially, apparently it's had 70% of the movie leaked months in advance. I've not seen anything like it for any big blockbuster movie prior to this one. As you're right, Lee says, Star Wars has traditionally been a bit of a mystery box in terms of withholding information, crucial information. I'm about to say crucial there, that's from Harry Potter. That's actually a franchise that did finish nicely and it tied up the story very well. Sadly, JJ, it looks like, hasn't been able to copy, what was it, David Ayer or something? I can't recall what his name is, doesn't matter. But I digress. It's a shame, Stephen, it's a damning indictment for this movie that so much information has leaked months upon months in advance. you're right, most Star Wars fans wouldn't go out their way to go and seek out spoilers, potentially big spoilers for this movie. But in the actual sequel trilogy, I have predominantly went and got spoilers prior to it. Not for The Force Awakens. I actually had the Han Solo death spoiled for me on Facebook accidentally. But The Last Jedi, I heard rumours about creative decisions. I went down a rabbit hole a couple of days prior to it, and it actually helped my consuming of that movie, because if I hadn't watched or looked at the spoilers, it'd have been an absolute car crash for me. I would have probably walked out with the way they handled Luke Skywalker. For this one, I didn't even have to go and seek out spoilers. You're right, Stephen, it's been there on YouTube, on the likes of Geeks and Gamers and whatnot, for a long time. It's been poo-pooed. It actually says that I was relieved when JJ came out and says that no one had seen the movie, it was just family and friends only, had seen early cuts. Turns out that's probably nonsense, because a lot of the spoilers and leaks have been confirmed. The one at the end scares me, I have to say.
Yeah.
We spoke about it, we'll just go right out and say it, Stephen. There is spoilers going to be here. We've not even seen the movie, but we'll talk about the ending. Apparently it is there that Rey does assume the title of Skywalker. She looks off into the Tatooine dual sunset with BB-8. You says it. BB-8 isn't even her droid.
No.
Skywalker isn't even her name. That just about epitomises this sequel trilogy. Mary Sue character, overpowered out of her napper, as we say here in Scotland. Powers that she shouldn't have. There's no justification for her having these powers so soon. She's not been trained at all. There isn't even a big time jump like we got between Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi, which obviously explained Luke becoming a semi-master. That's not there in this trilogy, so she's just been a Mary Sue from beginning to the end. I think they've tried to justify it by making her the granddaughter of Sidious. Doesn't work for me, I'm sorry. And look, I did say though, I can see what they were trying to do with that one, making her a Skywalker, because if you look at canon and this new Disney canon, Anakin was actually buffed via some nefarious means by the Empire, or by the Emperor.
Yeah.
So it technically is history repeating itself. It's like George says, it is poetic in a sense, but they've just mishandled all of the other different arcs to such an extent that when they actually try and go for some poetic creative decisions, it just doesn't work for me. And Stephen, what you actually says about Endgame as well, you're absolutely bang on as well about that. It was so tight-lipped, there was no spoilers released. It's almost like what Marvel are doing now is what Star Wars was doing for 30 years prior to the MCU. It was this big blockbuster franchise with an aura around it. Young kids loved it, older generations loved it, and they genuinely cared about the story and the characters so much that they didn't seek out spoilers. Star Wars has just dipped, it's went off in a different direction. I says it yesterday, it's in the doldrums. Yeah. It's a real shame to see.
John, it might be the case that Star Wars as a franchise doesn't have the legs, you know, out with the original trilogy. Prequel trilogy seems to be getting some love again as time goes on, you know, and I think that's just because I think one of the reviewers actually picked up on it. It's because probably those kids that watched the prequel trilogy back in the day are now adults, you know, so they've got fond memories of it. I think there's something to be said in that as well. You know, I grew up with the original trilogy. I was alive through that whole trilogy, and it's right, you know, it does take you back to your childhood, and I think that's what these films are, you know, they are, George Lucas did say they are made for kids, but you grow up with them. I don't mind the prequel trilogy storyline. The storyline is great, the characters are all fine, it's just delivery that really let the films down, but and the overuse of green screen, but
yeah.
This trilogy, on the other hand, is something we talked about last week that we did say, and we both agreed that it's a trilogy that we didn't need, you know. But we all got caught up in the sort of, the whole excitement of another Star Wars film, and not just another Star Wars film, the continuation of the original trilogy. Something we didn't think we would see.
Something we don't want to see now.
No, well, I think so. You know, and it's very easy to say these things now in hindsight. But at the time, I think we were all excited, especially when we got the news that obviously they were making episodes 7, 8, and 9, and then I think maybe a few months later they confirmed that the original cast were coming back as well, including Harrison Ford, which I never thought I'd see. But the way they've been handled as well has been all wrong, you know, and I think. We understood, they made it clear from the start, John, that this was not going to be about the original three, that they were going to be side characters to make way for the new characters, and you just had to accept it, you know. But I felt that they could have dealt with the characters a bit better. I felt that there should have been some scenes with Luke and Han. Mark Hamill was so disappointed that I think that was his first reaction when he read the script. I'm never going to act with Harrison ever again, which was very sad.
Do you actually recall that, Stephen?
Yeah.
That moment, that photograph with them all sitting
the black and
around,
white photograph,
and we seen Mark Hamill sitting. I think it was next to Andy Serkis.
Well,
and it got us so excited to see these guys.
He had a copy of the script in his hand, and we didn't know obviously.
He was narrating.
He was narrating. He was because he didn't have any lines. So, it's an unusual thing to do. We know why J.J. Abrams didn't want to deal with Luke Skywalker in that film. He set it up for Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson wanted to set things up again.
Shat the bed, some would say.
Yeah, and then we are where we're at now. And a lot of people. It's sad to see, but a lot of people, are saying that the saga ended in 1983. Now they're disregarding these films as fan fiction now, which is sad because a lot of people out there, I think they're called the fandom menace. Are taking great pleasure. I do not want to see a Star Wars film fail. I'm a Star Wars fan. Some of them have failed. Attack of the Clones, which I've probably seen about 3 times since its release, is a poor film, but
still has moments, huh?
Yeah, it has moments. All Star Wars films have moments, John. The Last Jedi, we spoke about it last week, has got some of the best things that have ever happened in Star Wars. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously, when we go and see the film on Sunday, and then we can do a spoiler free. Obviously, we're talking about some spoilers here, but they're more in our sort of the way we're looking at things. It's rumoured spoilers. Yeah. So
yes, Dean. Look, I've been looking at some of the main reviewers on YouTube. Obviously, the likes of Campea, Jeremy Jans, the likes of Chris Stuckman. He's just released his review not long ago at all. And they seem to be saying it's awfully bloated. It feels like a 4-hour movie condensed into 2 hours and 20 minutes. I, for the life of me, can't understand what they were thinking with that. They had all the time in the world to make this movie flow nicely, to give it lots of room to develop out all the characters we had previously. I don't know why they've introduced so many new characters as well, the likes of Zori Bliss.
Yeah.
Apparently Richard E. Grant's character is the new General Hux. General Hux has been so marginalised. He's such a figure of fun now from The Last Jedi that can't even take him serious. The audience members have seen him, they think he's a joke, and now they've had to bring in someone else who is scary. I think it was Chris Stuckman, or perhaps Jans that says that.
Right, it was Jans,
we've lost so much respect for that character, they now have to bring in another replacement. That's what obviously Richard E. Grant is, but there's been so many characters brought in, and I says to you, I was concerned in the build up to the movie that they had not enough time to finish the arcs we've already got with the likes of Poe, Finn and Rey, and then they're introducing even more characters in. How can they make this all work organically, weave and fit it into 2 hours? They could have made this movie 3 hours long.
You do remember there was a rumour that they were going to split this film into 2 parts.
I wish they did.
We did think at the time there'd have to be a lot of retconning, and then obviously telling a decent story as well, which would take up a lot of time. But obviously J.J. Abrams has got respect for Rian Johnson in the sense of being a fellow director, and he doesn't want to do his work a disservice, but at the same time being polite about it. From what I've heard, that he kind of retcons a lot of his stuff in this film, so it's one of these things that how much can you cram into 2 hours and is it 20 minutes or
2
something?
2 hours and 20 minutes.
20 minutes. It's
barely long enough.
Yeah, I thought perhaps they should have maybe went for 3 hours, but it really depends on the quality of the plot, and what we're going to get. It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle the Carrie Fisher footage as well. From what I hear,
apparently very well.
Yeah, technically, but I think from a narrative, it's some people have said, it just doesn't sit well with them, but I think that's probably because of they're aware of Carrie Fisher's passing. Maybe in years to come that won't be as noticeable with newer generations that didn't understand or didn't know that she'd passed away before this film was released. So it's very interesting in that sense, John. I'm hearing the visuals are top notch. Yeah. They always are. They're always going to be with Star Wars films, regardless of the quality of storytelling and delivery. But John Williams as well. I do hear we're going to get the greatest hits in this one. That's and I mean that in a good way, John. I think we're going to get all the themes that were throughout the saga. We're going to get them in some kind of capacity. Whether
Duel
it'll
of
be
Fates.
it could be subtle. It could be
runes.
Yeah. Well, we did get the march, the Imperial March, in one of the trailers. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think it was the one where Vader and the Emperor were talking to Kylo. So I'm looking forward to, in that sense, the technical aspects of the film as well, because there's something about a Star Wars film in the cinema, regardless of how you feel about The Last Jedi, it's probably one of the most stunning looking films, Star Wars films, and that scene that you were talking about last week, John, with Holdo in space, the crash scene, was one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in any sci-fi film, never mind Star Wars.
Stephen, look, I was speaking about it last night. I was speaking about Rian Johnson and how he's handled the movie. He was talking about placating fans, how you should, no director or anyone involved in an artistic side of things, be it music or whatnot, should be placating fan bases, that they have to stick, or adhere, whatever the hell you want to call it, to their own creative vision. Yeah. And I can kind of see what he's saying there.
An independent standalone film, I would agree with him, John, but not a franchise, an established
exactly,
franchise.
Stephen. And look, I think in the main, you can't really, I mean, some of the criticism's been levelled at this movie that it's going too much on fan service. There's too much getting back to the past. I'm actually looking at a review here. It says, despite the vast deepness and immense possibilities of George Lucas's long ago galaxy located far, far away, Disney's Star Wars is more an exercise in exhumation than storytelling, essentially bringing the dead back. Literally in this case with obviously the Emperor, but bringing the dead back in terms of the past. The big plot line and message you were trying to sell the audience from The Last Jedi was, let the past die, kill it if you have to. 2 years on, they're trying to bring the past back.
It sounds like both directors had different
creative, completely
ideas,
different visions, and that's what I was saying last night. You can't. That's one thing you can't level at Rian. He certainly can't be criticised for fan service. He just tore it up, changed the mythology and whatnot. Some people hated it, some people loved it, but you certainly can't criticise him from that aspect. But Stephen, how much of these issues do you think are seen here should be levelled at Rian Johnson, or is it just an issue with Disney as a whole? Kathleen Kennedy, her tutorship, or whatever the hell you want to call it, as the Lucasfilm president. Does much of these problems stem from The Last Jedi? Because having looked at a lot of the reviews, it seems to be that much of this movie, certainly the first hour anyway, is exposition heavy, and they're trying to solve the issues of inconsistencies from setups from The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, try to do it in a manner which feels organic, trying to fit Princess Leia in there, using obviously archival footage. So how much of this is an issue with Kennedy, how much of it's Rian Johnson? Because they did have a chance to kill off Princess Leia in the Last Jedi. They could have swapped her with Holdo, made her hyperspace into obviously that supremacy, I think it was called, and then they could have brought Luke Skywalker. He didn't have to die. All they had to do was keep him levitating. He doesn't disappear and become one with the Force, and then they've solved a large part of the problems at the beginning of this movie, not been bogged down trying to keep Leia in the story in a way that feels respectful, and then give her fitting end. And then they could have maybe had not so many issues in terms of continuity from The Last Jedi. Do you think it's mostly down to Rian Johnson, JJ, or maybe just a combination of them, or is it Kathleen Kennedy? They all see.
Well, the buck has to stop at the top, John. So she's got to take some shoulder of the blame. The directors, on the other hand, I said this last week, they should have had some kind of idea, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Where this was going. It doesn't look like they did. J.J. Abrams can say all he likes about we were always going to bring back Palpatine. Ian McDiarmid actually confirmed this in an interview that he only got the phone call last year. Force Awakens was out in 2015. And he also
confirmed that George Lucas told him he is 100% dead. When news of this takeover from Disney, news of them bringing back the original characters, he asked him, is he still alive or is he definitely dead? And he says 100% dead. And now he's alive.
Well, I think the turning point was obviously Rian Johnson killing off Snoke.
Absolutely.
And we didn't have a bad guy apart from Kylo.
And we spoke about that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, and that's one of the situations that we found ourselves in after coming out the cinema after The Last Jedi was sitting in Starbucks, and I'm staring into space going, where do we go with this? This feels like the end of a story, and we've still got an episode to go. It doesn't make any sense,
I think JJ was thinking that as well.
He probably was, I think behind closed doors he's probably pulling out his hair. Ryan can't do that, but I think it's just a bizarre scenario. And getting back to whose shoulders the blame, John, Kathleen Kennedy's got to shoulder the blame. She appointed the directors. She, obviously her and her board, but she's at the forefront of Lucasfilm. She's the lead. She decides. She's the final say on who directs. I don't know how much Bob Iger obviously takes to do with these decisions, but I don't think he would interfere with Kevin Feige's decision making on the Marvel stuff. So it's Kathleen Kennedy. I just think that I would have stuck with one director. I've got to be honest with you. I think one director dealing with the whole arc would have been fine. J.J. Abrams, it wasn't at that point a man that completed stories, and from what I'm hearing from obviously the Rise of Skywalker, it looks like there's a reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Look, what you says about Kathleen Kennedy, you're absolutely right. She is shat the bed. I keep saying it. I said it about Ryan Johnson not handling Luke correctly. Some would disagree.
Yeah.
I actually contradicted myself. I says I didn't mind the handling of Luke in the main. It was just some minor inconsistencies. I actually thought his death was fairly fitting if it fitted the natural arc of the overarching trilogy, but it doesn't, because Leia died, Carrie Fisher died, and Leia, there was a vacuum there, so they screwed that up. But she then passed the buck over to Michelle Raywan, I think her name is. I've just googled it. Definitely is Michelle Raywan. I don't know why I'm saying I think. I know it is. So she passed the buck over. I don't know how much of that was down to Bob Iger stepping in and saying, look, you've made a complete arse of this, we're not having you doing it anymore. Obviously Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are working together on The Mandalorian. We've got the guy from The Americans, I think it is, working on the Cassian Andor series. She's stepping back, it seems, more and more from the live action side of things. I think she's going to be ushered out the door at the end of her contract, the back door. Personally, if it was me, she would be out the front door tonight. She'd be gone, because I think it's absolutely her fault. Combination of her, well, not even a combination of her and Ryan Johnson, it's absolutely her fault alone. She, as you did rightly say, hired Ryan Johnson. She allowed him to do his story, didn't even allow for reshoots. She thought it was good enough. Anybody who's a Star Wars fan, and she clearly isn't, which has been proven time and again recently when she spoke about no stories to mine from in terms of creative decisions and things for new movies. Absolute nonsense. We've got years of stories, great stories from the likes of Timothy Zahn. But anyone watching that movie would know it was a car crash. It was going to divide the fan base, and it was going to screw up the continuity of the entire trilogy. You're absolutely right as well, what he says about having one director doing the entire trilogy as a whole. It would have been so much better in terms of story, overarching. You can say what you want about George Lucas and the prequel trilogies, but the overarching story works because they had a roadmap to follow. I think it was Stuntman says it as well in his review. It's clear, more and more clear I should say, watching these three movies now, that there was no roadmap. They had no clear destination. It was just all over the place, haphazard. The Force Awakens set it up, the Last Jedi set it up, and this is just an absolute car crash.
In the Force Awakens, I think it might have been Jans that mentioned, he liked the angle they were going with the deserted stormtrooper and Finn, and by the time we get to The Last Jedi, he's a side sort of comedic act. And it's the same from what I'm hearing for the Rise of Skywalker as well. The relationship between Rose and Finn is just not there.
Non-existent,
it's easily disposed of, and it goes back to what you're talking about, John, that I think the first 30 to 40 minutes is really just fixing a few things out that happened previously. So
a lot of hopping as well, apparently. That reminded me of Rogue One. The first half an hour of that movie was just planet hopping, chasing a specific thing. In this case, trying to find, I think it was Galen Erso, and try and get the Foz or get information out of him. I think they were trying to kill him, is it in actual fact? So that reminded me of that, and we know what that movie was like in terms of structurally behind the scenes, reshoots and a car crash. So kind of a fits again with the rumours we got for this movie, that it was just a disaster behind the scenes, and it's now paying out. But Stephen, I think this is just desserts for an absolute mishandling of the entire thing, the entire Star Wars brand. I says it time and again, I says it last night, I says it to you as well. they've shat upon this brand from a great height. When I was a child growing up, seeing Stormtrooper toys and whatnot, had genuine awe. Yeah. And now it's dead. It's just dead.
The problem with Lucasfilm is that they make it hard on themselves, because they release a slate for 2015, 2017 and 2019 for these new episodes before they even wrote the stories. That's madness. Absolute madness.
Yeah, and they have to adhere to it. You're absolutely right, Stephen. And then it's putting pressure on getting the right guy in there, because you've got no time to actually breathe. I mean, Star Wars has never been like the MCU. You're putting out 1, 2, 3 movies a year. Yeah. It's always been a 3-year gap between these movies. It gives some time to sit back and think, did we make the right decision here? If we didn't, then let's do this.
John, they were wanting their money back as soon as possible.
Exactly, Stephen, they were. And look, it's absolutely, you can see the fruits of our labour are there. There's been one good movie, maybe 2, The Force Awakens and Rogue One. The rest have been shit. Are decent. I think The Last Jedi is decent, no better than what's the worst prequel movies. Solo was okay, but again, structurally you could tell it was a disaster. Rogue One was still my favourite to this day, and it was a disaster behind the scenes, so that's certainly not a barrier to making a good movie if it's structurally shite. But in that case, we got Tony Gilroy in. He identified the flaws and dealt with them. In this case, they've not had someone like that. It's been sycophantic bitches behind the scenes like Kennedy, just saying, okay Ryan, do what you want, and this is what happens. So look, I'm depressed, Stephen. I don't know about you. I'm not even remotely anticipating this movie at all. So
no, listen, that's probably the best way to get into it, John. I think we've been burnt before, getting in with high expectations and being let down. So we'll just go in. You know, I don't generally get into a film listen to other people's opinions on films. You know, I'll take it for what I get out of it. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this in more in depth with spoilers very soon. Absolutely,
Stephen. The final thing I would add, it may actually improve my enjoyment of the movie, because much like The Last Jedi, I went in expecting an absolute disaster, and I was pleasantly surprised with some elements. And then as the effect and the awe of watching the movie wore off, I realised, it was another pile of shite. So maybe it'll be the same with The Rise of Skywalker. Maybe it'll pleasantly surprise me. The experience of watching it on the big screen will make me feel happy, and then in 5 months' time I'll be ranting away like a little mini Hitler. Well, I'm the same height as Hitler, so not mini. But look, I digress, guys. I'm going to round up the show on that note. What a strange note to round up a Force Friday show, talking about Hitler. What do you guys make about the Rise of Skywalker? Have you seen it? Is it a car crash, or is it okay? Who the hell do you think's to blame? Is it Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson, J.J. Abrams, Bob Iger? The devil in hell, Lord knows, the devil in the deep blue sea. You can tell us what your thoughts are down below if you have got anything to say. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and we'll try and sync it up today. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying content like this, and if you do, then you'll see us again at some point, probably on Monday, for MBE Movie News.